ਵਾਅਦਾ ਜੋ ਕੀਤਾ ਜੇ ਅਸਾਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਉਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਸ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਕਰ ਦੇती
touch on perineal scar tissue really quick, since some of you had messaged me about it, and I just didn't mention it yesterday because sometimes I can go off on tangents. So yes, that can be a huge part of restrictions for people, which is why, of course, I'm always advocating you to find somebody one-on-one in person to give you that hands-on approach. But it also kind of goes along the lines of what I was talking about last week with prolapse, where people kind of just jump to this assumption that it's weakness. But I want you to kind of think about any sort of episiotomy or natural tearing. If there's scar tissue, that scar tissue can pull down on the organs is kind of how that theory works. And if we can get that to release and get tissues back to sliding and gliding like they would there be an impact on your prolapse symptoms rather than just focusing on strength? I have a, so he, all right, I finally have some pelvic health content. I was thinking this when I was riding on my bike. So remember how I said it's easy to go on tangents, and so that's why I kind of try to break things into pieces. But on the ongoing topic of scar tissue, if we agree that a local restriction then creates this distant difficulties elsewhere because then everything else is maybe taut or not moving and gliding like it should. Let's take one example of sexual dysfunction or lack of sexual appreciation that sometimes happens. And we're just going to talk about one of many things that it could be. But for example, the clitoris has something called the clitoral hood. So when it's not necessary, it has its hood up. And then when arousal happens, the hood comes off. And it opens those nerve endings that are really sensitive, and then it comes back on and off as needed. But what if that scar tissue creates dysfunction of the clitoral hood moving on and off? And your sexual issue is not necessarily related to any. Another example of why you kind of need to really look at your past medical history. You know, sometimes it's like, how did this thing just crop up? Well, maybe it didn't just crop up. Maybe it is a culmination of, you know, a few things, and then pregnancy, postpartum, whatever happened, like kind of was that tipping point for you. And also why we need to zoom in sometimes, and sometimes we really need to zoom out to see the full picture of what is going on. And so I know some of you are like, I don't understand, you know, I'm not really sure I buy into the fact that this little laparoscopic scar can be part of it. It could be a piece of the puzzle. I've had lots of people with laparoscopic scars that when you start touching them, they are restricted. They kind of feel these like distant sensations of something else happening as you're working on them. And number two, it's a conservative approach, and you wouldn't know until you try to see if it does make a difference.